It's time for Real Estate 101 with the Karey Brown team from Realty Executives Preferred Advisors.
Good Sunday morning to you. This is Karey Brown Brooker, owner of Realty Executives Preferred Advisors, and you're listening to Real Estate 101. Today, I'm here with Tim Kolling. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning.
Tim is also a listing agent for our team, and he also works here at WIBW, so he wears many hats.
I do.
Today, we're going to be talking about millennials and buying real estate. So, his niece recently bought a house.
Yes.
And so I know you watched that process, and I also did the same with my son. So we have a firsthand knowledge of what that buying process is like. So, Tim, I'll let you share your story first.
Sure. My niece moved here 2 years ago, I believe, and she came to work for us as our promotions director here at the radio stations. And as she went through the process, I'm a listing agent, so I referred her over to Melissa, who's one of our buyer's agents. And I went along and helped her out, and it's really interesting to see what her as a single millennial female was looking for in a home. And then on the other end, you had Cody as a single male millennial looking for a home. And doing some research, I love doing research on both real estate and marketing. Looking at a lot of information about millennials, they don't want their parents' suburb home. You know, I don't want to say big fancy home, but they don't. What they want is closer to what's going on, closer to the excitement, closer to green spaces is what they talked about a lot. So where they could get out and do things. And they wanted their home, even if it's an older home and it's a fixer-upper, they wanted it to be as smart as possible. Everything with, the completely Wi-Fi capabilities. They want it to be an area where they could get fiber if they could. Programmable everything, so they will give up, size and maybe some of the nicer amenities of a home that we look at as very young 40-somethings for...
We'll go with that.
Yeah, for something that's going to be more of their lifestyle as a millennial. So it's very interesting. They're also a lot more financially not doing as well as our generation because of higher, more student loans, a lot of different things that are taxing them to where they don't have the money for a bigger down payment, or it's harder for them to get credit. So there's a lot of creative things that they're doing as millennials, but it's really interesting to see how they're overcoming them and finding that money and then making a house into a really nice home.
Yeah, we are seeing more and more where parents and grandparents are either helping with the down payment or they're actually buying the home for them and they're paying them back because of the student loan debt. A lot of them, they have a really huge student loan. And, they get into some credit card debt just from trying to make it through college. And, especially if they're having to do it on their own with not a lot of grants or student loan debt. So they're having to balance that by getting credit. And that kind of puts their debt to income way out of balance.
Right. But there's such a big buying group. Some of the research I read that they're 2/3 of the new home buyers, and over 34% of all home buyers are millennials. So they can't be ignored, and they're the up and coming group. And like you were saying, they don't have enough money to do some of the things that they may want to do for the bigger homes. So they're really looking for homes that could be upgraded. I think they're a generation that grew up with their parents watching a lot of the HGTV type things. So where myself, I'm not real handy around the house. I see a lot of the millennial generation who are, hey, we'll try it. We'll see if we can make it work. They're watching YouTube to see how to do things. I've seen a lot of that to where I'll talk to my niece and, I wanted to do this, and this around the house, so I just YouTubed it and kind of tried to do what they were doing, and she does a pretty good job. So
She and I talked about her renovation on her bathroom, and I said, you know what? I said, go out and price it. Because a lot of times you look at it and there are things you can do yourself, or you can do, have a family member that can help you with, that you wouldn't have to spend mega bucks. If you're having, a larger contractor come in, well, they have insurance costs and employee costs and all of those things. So if you are handy and you can do it yourself, the cost is significantly less. So she went out, she priced everything for the bathroom, and she was just shocked that she could do it. Same thing with my son. When we bought ours, my husband and I, neither one of us are afraid of work. So we were like, okay, we went in and myself and Cody and Troy renovated that house. So we painted everything. I stripped cabinets and redid them. They were originally a pale blue and a peach. When they were done, they looked like they were naturally cherry wood.
Oh, wow.
You wouldn't have known that I actually did that. So we stripped all of the floors because they were hardwood and they were stained. Redid them all, painted everything. There's still some touch-up that needs to be done. We got tired. So there's a lot of things that you can do that, we learned via Google. We Google everything. We had a contractor not show up to finish our pool, and it was an in-ground pool, so we Googled it. We did it. It still works to this day.
Yep.
Google can teach you quite a bit.
Yeah, it can. So we, I hope she's not listening this morning, but we use my niece as a guinea pig. She'll want to do a project, so we'll help her. She'll YouTube it, Google it, and find ways to do it. We'll help her, and if it works, then we'll do it at our house. So, one of those deals. But it's funny dealing with millennials. They do a lot of research. They will do hours of research to buy a sweater online. So when it comes to a house, they usually come in pretty knowledgeable. I know with my niece, she knew kind of the area she wanted to be in. She did a lot of research with the homes, but she still needed Melissa's expertise. That Melissa taught her a lot of stuff that she was unaware of, just because Melissa's a seasoned veteran, and we really helped her out on that end. But it's really interesting, the difference in generation and the next generation after that, which are my kids. I'm starting to read more and more on that generation. It's going to be different yet. So,
absolutely. I know whenever we were growing up, our parents thought that we, landed from some sort of alien ship because they grew up in a generation where they had the 20% to put down, and they either built it themselves or had family to help build. So they were much more financially responsible. Whereas with the millennial age, and even some for our age group, which is the slightly 40-ish range, honing in on 50, we had actually saved up quite a bit, but some of us did not. But they're needing for the sellers to pay their closing costs and prepaids because they've just put down enough or saved enough to put down their own down payment. There are quite a few down payment assistance programs now. As you would have heard whenever you listen to HCCI talk, they've got a lot of great programs also with down payment assistance. You can get $3,350 as a down payment assistant from Federal Home Loan Bank if you work through Housing and Credit Counseling.
Yeah, I heard Chris's show. That was a good show.
I know when Tori came in, she actually sat down with me first before working with Melissa, and we looked at her budget, and she was by far the most organized person I'd ever met. She knew exactly how much she had in every account. She knew how much she had saved. I mean, everything was in a spreadsheet, and I just looked at her, and I'm like, I'm so impressed. You're so young, and you've got everything together, and it's all very well outlined, and it was truly impressive. My son's the same way. Everything he has is in a spreadsheet. He knows exactly where he's at. And if he dips down over a couple $100 in his savings account, or in his checking account, he's freaking out. Mm-hmm. So, they're a little more, they're well researched, and a lot of them are very, very responsible.
Yeah, of course, my niece gets that from her uncle, I believe. But no, I see that in her. she's now talking about doing some different things around the house, like you'd mentioned, the kitchen and the bathroom. And now she has, she has an unfinished basement, and then she has an attic room, I guess you would call it. And she's like, so what would the value of the house do if I finished one of those? And we got into that discussion, and it was crunching numbers and doing all kinds of things. And I told her, I said, really, it's going to boil down to if you're going to use it. This is your house. You said you're going to be here for a while. And if you're going to use it, then it's a value to you. It might not be as much of a value if you want to sell the home later, but it won't look bad. But she is, in her mind, it's just numbers, crunching numbers. If I do want to sell this 10 years down the road, what's this value going to bring back to me? But, she is, that's why we have her as our promotions director here at the radio station. She is super organized, and you see that a lot in this millennial generation. They know everything. They've, as far as the retirement, as far as everything, they know, how much is coming in each month, how much is it's growing. Maybe a little different than us Gen Xers who are, a little bit freer with our money and the way we do things. I think it kind of skips a generation, because I see see a lot of my niece from what I saw in my parents, who grew up right at the end of, came along right at the end of the Depression era. So, but it's really interesting and how you have to approach them. They like to be helped, but they don't like to be told things, if that makes sense. They, like I said, they really like the access to as much online as possible. So in the bigger cities, they're really looking for areas that have the fiber, as far as the high-speed internet, looking for areas that's going to be more in the entertainment area. So they want to be able to walk somewhere and sit with friends at a coffee shop or a pub or something like that and be able to, walk home easily. As far as kids, they want to be somewhere closer to parks and different things like that. So being in the higher end, fancier neighborhoods doesn't really mean anything to them, to the majority of them. So as real estate, we really have to kind of cater to them differently. And as it goes, we kind of have to grow with them.
And I think it's great that they're not as materialistic, or, name brand doesn't mean as much. It's more, how long is it going to last? But they're also very much into having the house be very Wi-Fi, everything, all the little gadgets that'll turn the lights on and off for you. That really appeals to them. So they may not need designer jeans, but they want to make sure that
they can turn their heat up and down from their office if they want to on their mobile phone.
Absolutely.
Which is cool. I like it too.
I have it on my phone. I like to be able to make sure that they lock the doors and, what is the furnace set on, and is it going to cook the husky inside the house, or is he going to be able to breathe?
Yep. Yeah, we're the same way. We can check I was horrible about, we would leave home and I would turn around 8 blocks later to drive back to make sure the garage door went down. So my wife found out on our security system, it could tell you if your garage door is up or down. And it took me a while to trust it, but now we're fine.
So, even though we make them sound like they're so much different than we are, we're kind of skirting around it. We're just not as smart as they are.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope she's not listening, but yeah, exactly.
Or my son either.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. They've done the research and they're showing us how. But they can't program a VCR because they've never seen one.
True.
What's a VCR?
They still need us.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that go into, especially when you're younger and buying a home. And I know whenever I was looking, my parents don't live anywhere near here, and his do. But, for us, we felt like, well, we can do this on our own. We don't need their opinion. Whereas millennials, they've got their parents and friends, and everybody helps make that decision. They
are when we talk about this, when we talk about online things, they look at reviews online when they're searching for things, but they also ask. I mean, they're asking everybody, whether it be through social media or just flat out asking people. My niece said, who's the best person to go to for this, and who's the best person to go through for that? And I hear her asking that question around our office. We got, 50 people here, and she'll probably ask 49 of them a question about, what she should do with her house or different things like that. So they're very, very information hungry, and they want advice. They want somebody that has good reputation. She was looking for a contractor to maybe look at helping her do a few things, and it was based on reputation. If they get good referrals from other people, then they're more apt to go with that. So they're very intuitive, I guess you would say.
And they also utilize Yelp, and they look for reviews, and that's how they make their decisions. So having a reputation online is very important in doing business with them. We have noticed a lot of times that, and for sellers, especially in the older generation, which is typically the listenership of the show, what you need to know is when you're selling your house, more often than not, you're going to be paying their closing costs and prepaids because they just have not budgeted for it, or they have such high student loan debt or things along those lines that they can't save that plus their down payment. So looking at that whenever you're pricing your house is important. I know whenever we sit down with the seller, we have everything mapped out. They know exactly what they should net, and then we've factored in the things that are considered negotiable, and we show them worst case scenario so that they know going out and, putting their house on the market, what they can expect to net. And we factor in what the millennials will be asking for.
Right. Yeah, because it's either one or the other. They'll have money for a down payment or they'll have money for closing costs, and it's usually not both. Now, in the Midwest, they do a little bit better. I've noticed, as far as some of the data I've read, that, on the coast, they're really strapped. But in the Midwest, I think they're doing a little bit better. But they will ask for those closing costs to be paid for as quick as they can.
Absolutely. So join us again after the break, and we'll talk a little bit more about what you can expect when you're working with this age demographic.
This is Stephen Parkin at Invista Credit Union. Purchasing a home is one of the most exciting and important decisions someone can make. Let me tell you why Invista is the best choice for financing your new home purchase. First, quick pre-approval process. Our fast decision-making gives you the power to act quickly and make an offer on your dream home. Second, local servicing. We service your mortgage in-house. You won't get a long-distance runaround, but a committed professional whose only job is to help you. Third, experienced team. We are dedicated to simplifying the process and educating you through the home buying process. Come by Invista. It's okay to dream. In fact, it's encouraged. We are your home buying partner. Give us a call at 785-228-0149.
Southwest Topeka has a good neighbor. State Farm agent Jim Garrison, now at 29th and Urish. If your current insurance situation has you going around in circles, get off the roundabout and stop in and meet Jim and his wonderfully efficient staff. Let Jim Garrison give you a quote and make the Garrison comparison. He's confident that with State Farm's competitive rates, the right coverage, and his unmatched service, you'll want to make him your new insurance agent. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there, and Jim Garrison is there for you, northeast of the roundabout at 29th and Urish.
Thanks for joining us after the break. This is Karey Brown, broker, owner of Realty Executives Preferred Advisors, and you're listening to Real Estate 101. Tori, who is Tim's niece, just happened to be walking by, so we've nabbed her, so we'll get to hear firsthand what it was like being a millennial buying a home. So, yeah. Tori, what did you think of the buying process?
So it was really eye-opening, and there was certainly things along the way like you didn't really expect to along the way, I guess. So my expectations were a little different, but not in a bad way. So you guys really helped through that. Melissa, the agent that I worked with you guys, she just basically, I trusted her from the get-go, and I trusted her advice on the process. So the biggest thing I would say is just like you have to pay attention, and you have to know and check on things like, okay, this has been done, yes. This has been done, yes. And then just knowing how to maneuver through that the whole way.
So what did you think of the inspection process? Because I know that, most people expect a home to be move-in ready. I don't have to do anything. Obviously, they're selling it. They should have everything fixed, but that's really not the case.
Right. So the inspection process, I actually had one home that fell through that was because of the inspection process. So that was my first eye-opening thing. I just kind of was that naivete mindset where I was like, oh, it'll be fine. Like, I walked through it. I'm sure there's nothing I would have seen anything if there was something wrong, and that wasn't the case. So that was the first eye-opening thing, was like, wow, you can actually lose contracts and like things can fall through based on inspections. And then the house I ended up purchasing, kind of same thing to an extent, but I felt like we, me as the buyer and then the seller, came to good agreements as far as what was reasonable for the seller to cover and what was reasonable for the buyer to cover. But that was kind of an eye-opening thing too. Before you buy a house, I just kind of thought, oh, well, the seller wants to sell it, so they'll fix everything that's wrong with it. And that's not the case at all. It's very much expected that the buyer will fix part of it and the seller will fix part of it, and talking about negotiations of which part, which not, and then what falls on the seller to investigate costs and what falls on the buyer to investigate costs. So, but I felt like I came to a fair and good agreement with the seller, working with them, and they covered the things that I felt was most important through the negotiations. And I was lucky enough that they pretty much felt the same way as well on what was reasonable for me and what was reasonable for them.
So after buying a home and getting it fixed up, how do you feel about being a homeowner now?
I still love it. So I've been one for a year and a half, I guess. Almost a year and a half. And I still love it. I knew within 2 hours of owning it that I preferred it over renting, and that feeling hasn't gone away. And what I tease people about now is I'm excited at 27 about projects and about things that like I never thought I'd be planning and excited for. So I've got my bathroom renovation kind of scheduled for the next few months, and I'm looking at toying with the idea of a kitchen renovation. And if you would have asked me like 5 years ago, hey, in 5 years you're going to be really excited about a kitchen renovation, I would have laughed. I would have been like, no, that's for people that are older and have families and kids, and you don't have to have that, you know. I don't have kids or anything like that, and I'm still wanting to do that with my budget and wanting to do that for my home. And you have that sense of pride and ownership where I truly want to feel like home, but also make it better for myself, but for the future too, you know, when I look at resale, if that's something that comes up in the future.
So Tori, you got a roommate. What made you decide to do that?
Yeah, so my roommate and I have actually known each other since 8th grade, and she was looking at going to school at Washburn, and truly it was just more about the relational decision, less about like the income decision. And so when she approached me about it, I did something. I was like, let me think about it, because I truly wasn't really looking for a roommate. That wasn't on the list of things to accomplish, but I felt like it was the right thing to do to help her out. She wasn't going to be able to complete her schooling unless she had a good living, stable living, safe living. She had 2 pets, so her budget was only so high, and for her to be in a good area of town and have a good living environment to go to school, I felt like it was the right thing to do to help her. But obviously there's income associated with that. So I'm not so much of a good person that I gave her rent free. I wish I could say I was that good of a person, but I'm not. So she does provide me monthly income, and it is nice. So I've been able to do some projects and to look at budgeting for some projects that I wouldn't have been able to do, but they also benefit her, you know. So having a nicer shower and an updated bathroom helps her too, because she uses the same bathroom. And it's been good too. It's kind of nice to have someone, and then the income, I'm not gonna lie, is nice as well. So it's a nice like added and helps with the mortgage on that end too.
I think it's a great idea, especially whenever you're younger. I know whenever I moved out, I had a roommate. I had a roommate up until I got married. I can't remember a time that I didn't have one.
Sure, and she's kind of a double bonus. So her fiance, they are kind of distant right now, and will be once he graduates as well. But he helps around the house and he cooks me food. And so he does little things for her because, I'm doing it for, I love her. She's my future wife and I want her to live in a good environment. But like that helps me too because it's my house. So he kind of does the handy projects and then he cooks me food. So I can't, I wouldn't be able to live with both of them. You know what I mean? My house is just not big enough for 3 people and they can live as a married couple on their own. But it works too. It was like a double bonus. So I get a roommate and I get some extra income and I get some help around the house that I don't have to pay for.
Absolutely. And it's a really great idea, honestly, especially when you're single, to take advantage of that and have a roommate so that you can have that income. I sold a house when I first got into a guy, and he rented the house to 2 girls. So he lived in his basement and the 2 girls lived upstairs.
Sure.
There was no relationship between any of them. Now he is now married to one of them, and since then,
of course,
I have sold him multiple homes together, and they've finally found their forever home and have several kids now. But it's so great to watch, how that all transpired. I keep trying to talk my son into getting a roommate too. You never know. He got a wife out of that deal.
Yeah, and I mean, not that I'm looking at. She's hopefully, waiting on the nursing school thing right now, but hopefully we'll have 2 more years with me. And at 27, I'd like to think that by 29 I've met someone. But if I haven't, I'm already thinking of this friend's going to be graduating and maybe looking to move to Topeka. So there's another potential roommate. Here's another potential roommate. So I'm already lining up potential roommates after, because it has been, I think overall the experience has been more good than negative. And maybe that's because we do have such a long history. So there's a lot of hurdles we didn't have to get around because we have such a deep friendship already that maybe not everyone can encounter, especially if they don't know their roommates as well. But I would recommend it. And it's funny you said that basically until you got married, because that's kind of my plan too, is live in this house till the man comes along and keep having roommates till the permanent one comes along. So
absolutely. For us, it was a matter of, that was years ago because I'm significantly older than you, almost times 2. Not quite that much, but we didn't make as much money as you guys do. I mean, I remember working, and I was a secretary, and so I worked from 7 to 3 as a secretary and then worked at a grocery store as a checkout girl from 4 to 11. And that was what I had to do to make ends meet, and that was with a roommate. So we definitely didn't make good money, but the rent was still rent, So I think as being young adults, making those decisions so that you can be more financially stable. As you said, it's helping you do things you would not have been able to do.
Right.
And I think a lot of millennials do that. I know that, I'm not one, and I did. I think it's just smart business.
And I think in general, my generation too is looking more toward the things that help them in the long term as well as the short term. So short term, this helps me right now with some money goals and things like that. But long term, this will help because I'll have a nicer bathroom to show a potential buyer that comes into my home. I might have a nicer kitchen. I'll have a basement that has more than 2 outlets because I did install some electrical in my basement. And so I would think most people I know my age too kind of have that same perspective. So yes, we like to take our trips and we like to have fun and we like to use our vacation time that we're given at positions, but we also are making more financially sound decisions for long term as well. So we look at long term goals, both how they work in 6 months from now and how they work in our goals 6 years from now. At least I see that as a pattern in my generation. It may not be true for everybody in the millennial generation, but with my circle of millennials, it seems to be the trend for us.
Absolutely. So thanks for joining us on Real Estate 101, Tori and
Thanks
Tim.
for having me.
And if you're looking to buy or sell a house, be sure and give us a call. The number 785-213-5188. Be sure and check out our website. It includes Kansas City, MLS, Topeka, Lawrence, and Manhattan. So we cover all of Northeast Kansas. And the website is nekansashomes.com. Again, thanks for joining us on Real Estate 101.
Thank you for listening to Real Estate 101 with the Karey Brown team from Realty Executives Preferred Advisors. Tune in again next Sunday at 11 o'clock for Real Estate 101.